friends, welcome to One Little Coder. Let's say you are an SEO analyst or a digital marketing analyst or even machine learning engineer who's trying to get new story from a list of URLs that you have got. Let's say you scrape this page. When you scrape this page, you're going to get all these links, but also you're going to get the links that are at the bottom. Guidelines, FAQ, list, API, contact. And this is quite common with any landing page that you scrape. Most likely you would have about us, contact us, and all these things. And you don't want these links to be messing up your algorithm or your task. And if you want to figure out an easier way to find out URLs that will take you to news stories like news articles, then we have got a new Python package for that. It's called storysniffer. So in this tutorial I'm going to teach you. So first of all, storysniffer is from Ben Welsh. So thanks Ben for putting this out and then sharing it with us as an open source package. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how you can use storysniffer to detect a new story from URL. So I'm not going to get into the internals of how it works. Basically it uses machine learning and it's been trained with a bunch of like algorithms before, and also the model is like available as a pickle file. You can go here and then search model is also available here. So the point is we're going to use storysniffer and then figure out if a particular given URL has got story true, has not got story false. That's what we're going to do. For that, I've opened my Google Colab notebook. This Google Colab notebook will be in the YouTube description just below the like button. You can check it out yourself. The first step is to install the library. Pip install storysniffer. I am installing it in quiet mode, so install the library. Once the library is successfully installed, the next thing is now from storysniffer import storysniffer. Just pay attention to the uppercase S here. So this is camel case. From storysniffer everything smaller case, then import storysniffer uppercase and create an object called sniffer. You can call it anything. You can call it sniffer, you can call it S. It's up to you, the kind of meaningful information that you want to have. So at this point we have successfully installed the library. We have imported the library, and we have also defined an object based on storysniffer class. The next thing is now we need to have some input URLs for which we need to detect whether it is news article or not. So what I've done is I've taken the liberty of using the FAQ that I just showed you from the Y Combinator page, the FAQ here. And also I've taken a news article, a tech news article, which is a Google blog post about global foundries joining Google Open Source Silicon Initiative. So at this point I have two URLs, but as we move progress in the video, I can actually show you more URLs. So let me execute this, and if I execute this, you can see that it is actually a list of URLs where we have got the URLs. Now the next thing is, all we have to do is we have to use the function sniffer guess, and then we can pass on the URL. For example, sniffer.guess, because we have created an object sniffer there. Sniffer.guess takes two arguments. One, you can see it is a URL, which is mandatory. The second one is text. If you have any additional context about the URL, you can pass on the text as well. So in our case, we don't have a text, so I'm going to just give a URL. For example, I can just literally copy this URL. I can copy this URL, paste it inside this, and then run this, and then it's going to give me whether true or false. But we have got a URL list. I don't want to do it one by one like how we just did it. So for that, what I've done is I've created a slightly more complicated Python expression than simply using sniffer.guess. But at the core it is sniffer.guess. But what I'm doing is I'm taking cues from functional programming to use map, which will take this function, map it against this object. So which means this function is applied against every single element in the URL list, and then we are iterating through it to display the result. So map will give you a mapped object, and then you have to iterate on top of it. And to iterate, you can use for loop. Like for example, let me I think that's simple. So let me show you what happens without enumerate, and then you get to know. So ideally this is how your code would look. So what happens is this function is applied on this URL list, and then you have got the result, which is false and true. For like first one is false, the second one is true. But what I also wanted to display is I wanted to display the input URL and then whether it is true and false. So that's why I've done enumerate to extract the index, use that index to show the URL list input as in which is in this case this, and then run it. And when we run this, you can see for the first URL it says false, for the second URL it says true very correctly. So I've got one more link which is about some DALI news campaign. Let me take that as well. Let me add that as well, and I want to pick one more URL which has no news. So maybe let's say privacy policy, and I'm going to go add it. So my privacy policy is the last link. So I've got 4. As a human, I know already because I copied it. First one is should be false, second one should be true, third one should be true, fourth one should be false. Let me run it. We don't need this. We don't need this as well. So I'm going to finally run the map sniffer.guess URL list because we have already updated the URL list. And when I run this, you can see this is also false right now. That's okay. Maybe this is like a marketing article that's not classified as actual news. Let me do one thing. Let me go to news.google.com and pick up one of the news articles. So after 5 years of work. So another thing to note is that this is primarily trained with English dataset, which means like if you have got news in different languages, you might not get a very good result, but still that's okay. Let's try. What does it say? It says true. That's good. So it has done really well in the URLs that we tested. And for that matter, one of the reasons why I picked up the first URL is you can see that URL itself says news, the FAQ says news. Despite that, the model has predicted that this is false correctly, and that is one of the reasons why I picked this particular example. So overall, it's a very simple project. Does one thing, does that thing very well. Takes the URL and then predicts whether, or estimates sniffs whether the URL is a news story or not. And I feel that this would be really useful in the world of SEOs, digital marketing, and whenever you deal with natural language data, especially script data, to filter out unwanted URLs. If you have got any other use case, please let me know in the comment section. Otherwise, make sure that you star the repository. That should mean a lot to the developer. And also give a shout out to Ben Welch. Thanks, Ben Welch, once again for putting this library out together. I'll link the Google Colab in the YouTube description. Any questions, please let me know in the comment section. Otherwise, take care. Happy coding.